The diplomatic chamber of Zelvani Prime was a masterpiece of alien craftsmanship, vaulted ceilings woven from bioluminescent vines, polished obsidian floors that hummed with latent energy, and a scent in the air that Eli Carter could only describe as floral lightning. As far as intergalactic peace talks went, this was one of the better venues. Eli adjusted the high collar of his formal uniform, resisting the urge to tug at the stiff fabric. He'd been in stranger places before, but there was something particularly unnerving about sitting in an ornate hall surrounded by 8-foot-tall, elegantly armored alien women, each watching with expressions ranging from bemused curiosity to mild contempt. To his left, Dr. Mira Vasquez sat with the rigid poise of a scientist cataloging a new species, eyes darting between the Zelva delegates and her datapad. To his right, Jax O'Neill slouched in his chair, idly spinning a small screwdriver between his fingers, an engineer with the temperament of a street rat and the ingenuity of a war criminal. The last member of their delegation, Karana, perched on the edge of her seat, wide-eyed and practically vibrating with enthusiasm. A self-proclaimed cultural liaison, Reed, hopeless romantic, she had been gushing about the Zelva since their ship entered orbit. At the head of the chamber, Queen Zelther regarded them from her throne, a seat of woven silver and shimmering crystals. Tall even by her species standards, she exuded an air of effortless dominance. So these are the humans who wish to forge an alliance. The Queen's voice was smooth but carried an unmistakable note of amusement. Her violet eyes swept across them, lingering briefly on Eli before flicking to Mira, then Jax. Eli cleared his throat and forced a diplomatic smile. Captain Elias Carter of the Terran Union, it's an honor to... Your kind is shorter than I expected. Eli paused, off to a great start. Jax coughed to cover a laugh. Mira shot him a glare. Karana leaned forward eagerly. Oh, that's fascinating. Have you encountered humans before? What were your... Zelthera raised a graceful hand, cutting her off, only through second-hand reports. The Korthak speak of you as unpredictable pests. The Viridians claim you are adaptable but fragile. I have yet to determine which assessment is correct. Eli gritted his teeth, but kept his expression neutral. The Zelva were brilliant tacticians and powerful telepaths, but their weakness was their reliance on tradition and predictability. This negotiation was an opportunity to prove that humans were valuable allies, not unruly savages, which is why he needed to keep his cool. We believe humanity and the Zelva could greatly benefit from a cooperative exchange, Eli said smoothly. Technology, strategy, culture, a mutual. You will participate in the feast of understanding, the Queen interrupted. Eli hesitated. The what? Beside him, Mira subtly pulled up the term on her datapad. It appears to be an ancient custom. A test, Zelther corrected, her lips curling slightly. A symbolic ritual of trust. You will partake in our most sacred sustenance and prove your worth. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. Several Zelva warriors grinned, their sharp, crystalline teeth gleaming. Eli exchanged glances with Mira. Jax raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Karana was practically bouncing in her seat. What exactly is this sacred sustenance? Eli asked carefully. A servant stepped forward, carrying an ornate silver goblet filled with a thick, iridescent liquid that shimmered as if alive. Zelvani lacta, Zelthra announced, the life-giving nectar of our species. It is a great honor to partake. Jax muttered under his breath. So alien milk? Mira shot him a warning look before whispering to Eli, Captain, I strongly recommend we analyze it before consumption. There could be unforeseen effects on human physiology. Eli considered this. A diplomatic faux pas here could tank their entire mission. But hesitation could be seen as weakness. The Queen was watching, waiting. Screw it. He took the goblet, lifted it in a small salute, and drank. The liquid was surprisingly smooth, rich, and vaguely citrusy, with a strange tingling aftertaste. He finished the entire goblet in one go. Silence, then a murmur of approval from the Zelva. Several warriors nodded, impressed. Zelthra's lips curled into what might have been a smirk. Perhaps there is potential in your kind after all. Eli set the goblet down, swallowing the last remnants of the strange warmth spreading through his body. See. He grinned at Mira. Not dead. This is diplomacy at its finest. Mira pinched the bridge of her nose. Captain, you just consumed an unknown alien substance without any testing. Then it hit. A sudden surge of heat bloomed through Eli's veins, spreading outward like wildfire. His pulse thundered, his muscles tightened, then expanded with unnatural force. His vision sharpened. Every nerve in his body buzzed with electric intensity. Oh, that's not normal. Jax leaned back in his chair, whistling. Damn. Cap, you look like you just mainlined liquid steroids. Eli clenched his fists, feeling his strength multiply beyond reason. He exhaled sharply, trying to control the uncomfortable rigidity overtaking his body. Mira ran a quick scan with her datapad. Her eyes widened. Your metabolism is accelerating, neural activity spiking, muscle density increasing. Eli tried to stand, but his movements were stiff, unnatural. Okay, he muttered, trying to stretch. Nothing budged. Kirana gasped. Captain, are you okay? I can't move properly. Jack smirked. Well, that's one way to impress the ladies. A sudden explosion rocked the chamber. The ornate doors blasted open, revealing a squad of heavily armored, reptilian warriors wielding plasma weapons. The Korthak had arrived. The Zelva guards barely had time to react before the invaders stormed the chamber, weapons raised. Zelthra arose from her throne, her expression sharp. Korthak dogs. You dare. A towering Korthak commander stepped forward. By order of the Korthak Dominion, Zolvani Prime is now under our control. Mira grabbed Eli's arm. Captain, we need to move. Eli tried to respond, but his body refused to obey. He was too strong, too tense, too rigid. He could fight. He could break them if he could just move. Jax, still grinning, patted his shoulder. You know, Cap, maybe next time, don't chug the alien milk. To be continued. Eli couldn't move. His muscles had locked into place like a steel vise, his limbs unyielding despite the sheer power coursing through his veins. Every fiber of his being was coiled with unnatural tension. But the problem wasn't just that he was strong. It was that he was too strong to function properly. The Korthak commander, a hulking brute clad in segmented battle armor, sneered as his troops flooded the chamber. The reptilian warriors carried plasma carbines and shock batons, their emerald-scaled faces twisted in snarling amusement as they surrounded the Zelva delegation. Zelthra's expression remained icy and unreadable, but Eli saw the slight shift in her stance. Calculating, waiting. The Zelva queen was many things, but helpless wasn't one of them. Mira had already positioned herself between Eli and the nearest Korthak soldier, her datapad clutched in white-knuckled hands. Jax, ever the opportunist, subtly reached for a tool from his belt, eyes darting across the chamber for anything to improvise a weapon. Kirana was shaking, her hands pressed against her chest, but to her credit, she hadn't run or screamed. The Korthak commander took a menacing step forward, his thick tail dragging across the polished obsidian floor. The Zelva think themselves superior. Think their psionic minds make them untouchable, he growled, his voice a low, guttural rumble. His gaze flicked to Eli, narrowing. And this human? This one drank your sacred nectar, and now trembles like a frozen hatchling. A chorus of hissing laughter rippled through the Korthak ranks. Eli clenched his jaw. He could feel every ounce of strength brimming beneath his skin, but it was like his body refused to listen. His fingers barely twitched. His shoulders remained rigidly squared. Eli started, but his own voice rumbled with unnatural depth. Mira, still scanning him, exhaled sharply. Captain, I think your nervous system is... The Korthak commander lunged. Faster than any of them expected, a clawed fist rocketed toward Eli's face. And then, impact. The Korthak's knuckles slammed into Eli's jaw with the force of a wrecking ball. The floor beneath him cracked. The blow should have sent him flying. Instead, Eli didn't budge. The room went silent. The Korthak warrior staggered back, shaking his hand as if he just punched a slab of reinforced titanium. Eli blinked, didn't even feel it. Jax, wide-eyed, let out a low whistle. Damn, Cap, you're built like a battleship. The Korthak commander snarled in frustration and swung again, this time aiming for Eli's gut. Again, impact. Again, no effect. This time, the force reverberated back to the Korthak's own arm, sending him stumbling as his warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Impossible, the commander growled, flexing his now injured wrist. Eli exhaled, testing his limbs again. His body still refused to move properly, stiff as reinforced steel, but unbreakable, which meant, "Hey, Jax." The engineer, already smirking, nodded. "Oh, I see where this is going. Help me aim." With a grin, Jax grabbed Eli's shoulder and manually swung him forward like a battering ram. Eli's rigid forearm slammed into the Korthak commander's chest with bone-shattering force. The alien launched backward, slamming into 3 of his own warriors before crashing into a pillar with enough force to dent the metal. For a moment, no one moved. Then the Korthak forces exploded into action. Plasma fire erupted. The Zelva warriors moved fast, flickering like shadows as they activated psionic barriers, deflecting the first volleys. Queen Zelthra extended a single hand, and a wave of pure telekinetic force sent 2 Korthak soldiers hurtling into the walls. Mira grabbed Karana and dove for cover. Jax, still gripping Eli's mostly mobile form, maneuvered him into position like a human wrecking ball, letting Eli absorb plasma bolts like a walking fortress. "This is the dumbest plan," Mira muttered as she ducked behind a fallen column. "You say that, but it's working." Jax shot back, and it was... Korthak weapons were strong, but not stronger than Eli's body. Each shot that hit him dissipated harmlessly across his unnaturally dense skin. Each enemy that got too close was obliterated by a single, awkwardly swung limb. But they were still outnumbered. For every Korthak they took down, more poured into the chamber. The Zelva were powerful, but they weren't warriors. They needed an escape plan. Mira ducked low, eyes darting across the battlefield before snapping toward Eli's towering frame. "Captain, we have to get out of here before..." Then she saw it. The veins on Eli's arms, pulsing with golden energy, were glowing brighter. His breathing had become slow, controlled, and his muscles were shifting. "Oh," Mira whispered. That's not good." Jax followed her gaze. His grin faded. Cap." Eli felt it too. The unnatural tension was building, like a dam ready to burst. Zelthra, still holding her ground against the Korthak, finally looked toward him with something akin to concern. "Human," she intoned, "your body is still adapting. You must channel the energy or it will consume you." Eli clenched his jaw. "How?" Zelthra's violet eyes narrowed. "You are strong beyond measure, but if you cannot master your own power..." She glanced at the heavily fortified doors behind the Korthak reinforcements. "Then perhaps you should let it master you." Eli exhaled. Jax took a step back. "Oh, this is going to be good." And then Eli stopped holding back. He let the energy flood his limbs, feeling his body uncoil like a drawn bowstring. With a single step, the floor cracked beneath his foot. The Korthak turned toward him, suddenly realizing the mistake they'd made. Eli launched forward, and everything exploded. The moment Eli stopped resisting, the energy detonated through his body like a supernova. His muscles, once locked in place, uncoiled with terrifying force. The pressure that had rendered him immobile now became a conduit for something far more unstoppable. The first step he took toward the Korthak shattered the obsidian floor beneath him. The second step turned him into a blurry afterimage, a force of nature that the enemy barely had time to register. The third step was straight through the nearest Korthak soldier. Eli collided with the reptilian warrior like a freight train, sending the alien hurtling across the chamber. The Korthak crashed through a support pillar, his armor crumpling like tin foil. Silence. Then, as if waking from a stunned stupor, the rest of the Korthak opened fire. Plasma bolts screamed toward him, but Eli wasn't just durable anymore. He was fast. His reflexes had been pushed beyond human limits, his mind processing each incoming shot with crystalline clarity. He twisted, ducked, moved with an unnatural fluidity, letting the bolts pass inches from his skin. And then he struck. His fist lashed out in a blinding arc, connected with the faceplate of a Korthak soldier, who immediately ceased to exist as a singular entity. Armor buckled, bone shattered. The impact sent 2 other Korthak flying backward from sheer shockwave alone. Holy shit! Jax breathed, watching from cover. Cap's gone full war god mode. Mira, frantically scanning the readings on her datapad, looked increasingly concerned. This isn't just enhanced strength. His metabolic rate has gone into complete overdrive. If he doesn't regulate it... Jax grinned. He'll what? Punch a hole through reality? Mira wasn't laughing. Karana, still crouched behind cover, watched Eli in wide-eyed awe. He's magnificent, she whispered. He's a physics problem waiting to happen, Mira corrected. Meanwhile, the Zelva warriors have recovered from their shock. Their queen, Zelthra, nodded approvingly as Eli decimated their common enemy. With a flick of her wrist, she sent a ripple of psionic force outward, knocking back the nearest Korthak. Warriors, rally, she commanded. The Zelva soldiers, emboldened, moved in formation, fluid, deadly, efficient. They weren't brute force fighters like the Korthak, but they didn't need to be. They struck precisely, aiming for weak points in the reptilian warrior's armor. And with Eli as a spearhead, the tide turned swiftly. One by one, the Korthak began to fall. But Eli wasn't stopping. He was moving faster, hitting harder. Each strike sent shock waves through the chamber, cracks spiderwebbed along the floor and walls. The air itself hummed with the sheer force of his movements. And then his body seized again, not with rigidity, with something worse. Pain. Eli stumbled mid-charge, his breath hitching. A sharp, burning sensation lanced through his veins. His vision flickered, colors warping at the edges. Mira, still scanning, blanched. Captain, you need to stop. Eli gritted his teeth, staggering as his entire nervous system went haywire. Zelthra stepped forward, her expression unreadable. The nectar has transformed you into something beyond your own understanding. Yeah. Eli panted, fighting against the spiraling pain. I noticed. The Korthak survivors were retreating, dragging their wounded toward the exits. They weren't defeated, but they had seen enough. The commander, still slumped against a shattered pillar, gasped for breath, staring at Eli in horrified disbelief. "What are you?" he rasped. Eli didn't answer. He couldn't, because his body was overloading. Heat surged beneath his skin, his muscles convulsing as if rejecting their own power. His heartbeat pounded in his skull, too fast, too strong. The sensation wasn't strength anymore. It was collapse. Mira rushed toward him, skidding to stop. "Captain, listen to me. Your body is metabolizing energy at an unstable rate. If we don't regulate it, you're going to..." She didn't need to finish. Eli's knees buckled. His vision flickered, the room spinning around him. His own breath sounded like a hurricane in his ears. And then the ground beneath him gave way. With a final, uncontrollable pulse of energy, Eli's body detonated outward. An entire floor collapsed. Eli was falling. Gravity pulled him into the abyss, chunks of shattered obsidian tumbling alongside him. The chamber above shrank rapidly, the glow of plasma fire and psionic flashes disappearing as he plummeted into the unknown. Then impact. A deafening crash echoed through the cavern as Eli's body slammed into the lower level of the Zelva stronghold. The stone floor didn't just crack, it exploded, sending out a shock wave that pulverized nearby columns. Dust and debris filled the air in a suffocating cloud. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Eli groaned. "Still alive," he muttered, blinking away the haze. That was the good news. The bad news? His body felt like it was coming apart at the seams. The unearthly energy that fueled his rampage was now fluctuating wildly, his muscles twitching under the strain. He felt both too strong and too fragile, like a structure built from unstable explosives. Control it, or it will destroy you. Zelthra's words echoed in his mind. But how the hell was he supposed to control something he didn't understand? A groaning noise above made him snap to attention. The floor he collapsed through was unstable, the edges crumbling further inward. Then voices. "Eli." Myra's voice, laced with worry. "Are you? Oh, shit, we need to move." Through the dust, he saw movement. Mira, Jax, Karana, and Zelthra leaping down after him. They landed with varying degrees of grace, Zelthera, of course, descended like a phantom, untouched by debris. Jax, not so much, hitting the ground with a pained grunt. Mira rushed to Eli's side, scanning him immediately with her datapad. "You are a goddamn disaster, Captain," she muttered, frantically analyzing his biosignatures. Eli smirked weakly. "You flatter me." "I'm serious," she snapped. "Your vitals are unstable. Your body is still mutating at an unsustainable rate. If we don't fix this, you're going to either liquefy or implode." Jax whistled. "Can we vote on which one sounds cooler?" Karana smacked his shoulder. Zelthera stepped forward, calm but assessing. "Human, your survival depends on your ability to adapt." Her violet eyes gleamed in the dim light. "You were not meant to wield such power recklessly." Eli took a slow breath, feeling the energy surge through him. She was right. He had to stop fighting against it. He had to understand it. "Okay," he said, his voice steadier. "Then let's figure out how to make this work before my body decides to reenact a supernova." The Korthak weren't going to wait for him to get his shit together. Above them, the enemy was already regrouping. He could hear the stomping boots of reinforcements, the metallic clang of war machines being deployed. They had minutes, maybe less. "Jax," Eli said, voice tightening, "we need an escape plan." The engineer grinned. "Already working on it, Cap. This facility has underground transit tunnels. If we can find a functional power source, I can hotwire skiff." Zelthera inclined her head. "There's an old psionic relay chamber deeper within. It may hold what you need." Mira narrowed her eyes. "And you just happened to not mention that before?" Zelthera's expression remained unreadable. "You were preoccupied." Eli chuckled. "All right, let's move before I melt into a puddle." The relay chamber. The chamber was ancient, lined with crystalline conduits pulsing with faint, forgotten energy. In the center, a towering Zelva obelisk hummed with power, flickering like a dying star. Jax's eyes lit up. "Oh, she's beautiful." "You have a problem," Mira muttered. Zelthera placed a hand on the obelisk, channeling her psionic energy into it. The ancient machine awakened, circuits flaring to life. Jax moved fast, rigging up a bypass that linked it to the abandoned transit system. "Give me 60 seconds, and we'll have our getaway vehicle." Eli, meanwhile, had stepped away from the group. He was breathing deeply, forcing himself to focus, to listen to his own body. The power inside him wasn't random chaos. It had patterns, a rhythm. It wasn't fighting against him. It was waiting for him. And then clarity. His muscles stopped trembling. His heartbeat slowed. He wasn't a prisoner in his own body anymore. He was in control, just in time, because that's when the Korthak stormed in. The final fight and escape. The first war beast crashed through the entrance, a massive, cybernetically enhanced Korthak soldier, clad in reinforced armor plating. The second wasn't far behind. Plasma fire erupted. Zelthera and her warriors held the front line, their psionic barriers absorbing the first onslaught. Mira and Karana dived for cover, returning fire with pinpoint accuracy. Jax, still frantically hacking the transit system. "Not to rush you, buddy," Eli called, stepping forward. "But I think it's time I tested this new upgrade." Jax glanced up, saw the wild grin on Eli's face, and muttered, "Oh, this is going to be good." Eli charged. The Korthak behemoth swung a massive clawed fist, but Eli was faster. He sidestepped, pivoting with perfect precision before slamming his fist into the war beast's gut. The impact rippled outward like a shockwave. The Korthak flew backward, smashing into the wall with a thunderous crash. Mira gawked. "Okay, that's new." Eli flexed his fingers, feeling the power flow smoothly now. "Yeah, I think I figured it out." "Great," Jack shouted. "Because the skiff is online, let's go." The group rushed toward the transit dock, leaping onto the hover skiff just as Korthak reinforcements poured into the chamber. Eli stood at the edge, watching the enemy forces scrambling below. Then he turned to Zelthera. "Mind giving them a parting gift?" The Zelva queen smirked. With a single, effortless gesture, she sent a psionic shockwave through the chamber. The walls shattered inward, cutting off pursuit. as the skiff accelerated into the tunnels. Jax hooped. Now that is an exit. Mira leaned back, exhausted. So, what did we learn today? Eli grinned. 1. Don't drink alien milk unless you're ready for the consequences. And 2. Eli cracked his knuckles, feeling the power settle inside him. 2. Humanity adapts. And now, I'm just getting started.